This has always been about freedom of navigation. That the problem was they were striking hundreds of ships in the Red Sea, stopping the ability for ships to have that waterway.
Also be out of the loop on a big new deal President Trump says he'll announce before he leaves for his Mideast trip next week.
I think before then we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make. Like, as big as it gets, it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years.
At 4:42 in the morning, alarms screamed across the USS Truman as 15 ballistic missiles and more than 20 drones rushed in from multiple directions. Some skimmed low over the waves, others plunged from the stratosphere, and the carrier's radar went dark for 18 terrifying seconds. For the first time in decades, a U.S. nuclear-powered carrier faced a coordinated ambush designed to blind and destroy it.
And Donald Trump has posted online about moving to nuclear submarines to be nearer to Russia.
The men have been taunting each other after the White House this week said Russia had 10 days to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine or face tough sanctions. President Trump says he's ordered the deployment of 2 U.S. nuclear submarines to the appropriate regions in response to threats from the former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Mr. Medvedev reminded President Trump that Russia possessed nuclear strike capabilities. It's not clear exactly where Mr. Trump has ordered the submarines to be deployed. He is our North America correspondent, David Willis.
So what turned a near disaster into a stunning demonstration of resilience? And how did a swarm meant to overwhelm actually reveal the future of naval warfare? Imagine the world's most powerful warship going blind for nearly 20 full seconds with dozens of missiles cutting through the night sky toward it. That is what happened when the carrier USS Truman lost its picture in the middle of an early morning attack. And in those seconds, the line between control and catastrophe narrowed to nothing. The ship's radar screens froze, and the operators staring at them realized the most basic truth of naval warfare. If you cannot see the threat, you cannot fight it. It began at 4:42 a.m. with a sharp tone over the general alarm, followed by orders echoing through every passageway. The Truman was not under routine surveillance or tracking. It was being tested by a wave of electronic interference that scrambled its sensors just as incoming missiles appeared over the horizon. For moments that felt like hours, the carrier's command crew saw empty screens where there should have been trails of targets.
In developing news, the Pentagon loses another $70 million fighter jet in the Red Sea. Happened as the fight against Iranian-linked militants.
Third plane lost by the Truman during this deployment. It came just hours after Israeli airstrikes crippled the main international airport under the control of Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. The U.S. military suffered another loss as it confronts Iran's proxy groups in the Mideast. An F-18 fighter jet failed to complete a landing on the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier and fell into the sea.
The bridge became a storm of clipped voices, status reports, and frantic recalculations, all under the pressure of a timeline counted in seconds rather than minutes. The attack itself was built around complexity. Low-flying drones skimmed across the water, dozens of them, small enough to confuse radar returns, but dangerous enough to demand attention. Above them, faster and heavier missiles came in at steep angles, diving toward the carrier group from the upper atmosphere. Different flight paths, different speeds, and different signatures, all designed to overwhelm defenses. The assault was not random, it was programmed chaos. A blend of saturation and deception meant to stretch human and machine response to its breaking point. On the Truman's bridge, officers shouted range estimates and heading changes, while technicians tried to filter sensors from the noise. The sound of boots pounding metal decks mixed with the crackling of communication headsets, linking every part of the combat information center. Electronic countermeasures made even routine coordination difficult. What crews usually handled in smooth sequences of reports and orders turned instead into a series of choppy bursts where timing could not be predicted. This was not merely an attack on steel, it was an attack aimed at the nervous system of the fleet itself. Defenses came into play in ordered layers. On the outer edge were the escorting destroyers, each equipped with the powerful Aegis combat system. They shouldered the first burden, launching SM-6 interceptors in rapid succession. Bright streaks arced upward, and seconds later, fireballs crackled against the dark sky as warheads slammed into missiles still miles out. Behind them, the carrier squadron's own Sea Sparrow missile batteries spun into action, their radars locking onto closer targets. The final insurance rested in the point defense system called CIWS, a radar-guided Gatling gun that could shred a target before impact, but only at the very last possible range. The raw picture of that night was a sky dotted with tracer fire and radar signatures flickering on and off. SPY-1 arrays tracked what they could. Operators leaned forward over their stations, convinced that even one frozen display might mean losing position in the fight. Every successful intercept confirmed the design of the layered shield, yet at least one warhead managed to break through outer control and continued its dive, tracked and destroyed only within dangerous proximity. The Truman itself shook lightly from the concussion of nearby detonations, a reminder that defense never comes without stress on the framework it protects. For the sailors inside, the battle was not experienced as diagrams or statistics, but as screens going blank, alarms blaring, and urgent voices demanding reports. Some radar operators described their displays as flashing, freezing, then abruptly clearing as interference ebbed and control systems were restored. Each hiccup left them wondering if this was the moment the ship might take a direct hit. Fear was not spoken openly, but its weight pressed into every word and movement made during those minutes. Electronic warfare specialists fought a battle just as vital as those launching interceptors. Working in cramped stations, they traced the source of the jamming, filtered false signals, and pushed new inputs back into the combat system. Their hands danced across keyboards and dials, stripping noise away piece by piece. Slowly, clarity returned to radar sweeps. What was once chaos became readable again. Invisible tools restored eyes to a fleet that had been flying blind. The Truman survived because both elements locked into place at the right time. Interceptors and close-in weapons destroyed physical threats, while unseen electronic counters clawed vision back from the storm of interference. In the end, systems held, missiles fell short, and the carrier remained a floating fortress. But survival alone did not settle the score. If defense kept disaster away, retaliation would soon be required to send a message of deterrence and signal. What kind of battles will define the seas ahead? The Truman's survival proved that sheer firepower is never enough. The carrier lived through that night because radar specialists, missile crews, and electronic warfare operators worked as one. Steel intercepted steel, but invisible signals restored vision when it mattered most. Modern battles at sea are no longer decided only by how many missiles a fleet can launch. In an age of swarms and split-second strikes, the quiet contest for the spectrum now decides who sees first, who reacts fastest, and who survives. When the next wave comes, and it will, what unseen weapons will choose between victory and loss?